Hi guys, welcome back to Chess to Matthew. So on this video, we will tackle about the Game 7 of the clashes between Nepomniachtchi versus Liren before their World Championship match 2023. So Liren here is white and he played the move Knight F3, and Nepo here plays the move Knight F6, and there goes after C4, C5, Knight C3, D5, C6, D5, Knight X D5, G3, Knight C6, Bishop G7, Knight C7, the Rubinstein variation of the English opening. So the idea of Knight C7 is to control the last squared on the board, and again playing the move e5 with f6 and controlling the dark square with the pawn against this d4 pawn thrust of white, and again developing this bishop behind the pawn chain. So after Liren here castle on the king side, and after e5 following the ideas of Nepo on this variation, and after a3 rook b8, rook b1 f6, d3, bishop e6, bishop d3, queen d7, knight d2, opening the long dark square diagonal, and after bishop e7, here comes now the b4, the idea of the preparation of Liren on this opening, because after c6 b4, a6 b4, the black here cannot actually grab his pawn with only one defender against this two attacker with the knight, because he will lose his defense against the a7 against this bishop. So if the black here will force Lee to capture this pre-pawn after bishop takes b4, but there's just a simple bishop takes c6, removing the defender of this bishop and this pawn, because after b takes c6, there's a simple bishop takes a7, again winning back the pawn, and after b7, bishop to c5, and still the material here is even, and still a draw she want to play on. So after a takes b4, Nepo here just played the move b5, and after the move rook c1, in which the idea is to abandon the defense to this pawn so that the black here will be trapped, because still this knight cannot actually grab this pawn because he will lose his defense, his a7 against this bishop. So after Nepo here will fall on the trick after bishop takes b4, but there is just a simple bishop takes c6, capturing the knight, and after a recapture, leaving the black here with a extra pawn on the board, but the black here is losing after knight to a2, having two attacks against this bishop with the knight, and rook against this queen. So after queen d6 defending both the knight and bishop, but this queen is overloaded. So after knight takes b4, queen takes b4, rook takes c7, so we shall see in this position now that the white here has an extra piece on the board. So after rook to c1, Nepo here detect that trap, so he played the move rook to c8, and after the move knight b3 again, leaving this pawn undefended. So if Nepo here will greedily capture that pawn again with bishop, but there is just a simple knight to e4. The idea here is if the black will castle on the king side, there is a simple tactical shot after rook takes c6, winning a knight, because after the queen will capture that rook, here comes down the double attack of knight takes f6 check, and opening some diagonal for the bishop to attack this queen. So after rook takes f6 and bishop takes c6, we shall see in this position now that the white here has an obvious extra queen on the board. So after knight to b3, again Nepo here precisely play with castle on the king side, and to complete his development and put his king into safety and avoiding those trap that actually exist after his pawn was actually lack of defense. So after castle, Liren here played the move knight c7 to attack the queen, and after bishop takes with an attack to the rook, and after rook fd8, knight e4, and here for example, after rook fd8, the white here cannot actually grab the knight on c6, because after queen c6, although it actually remove the defense on the a7, but if the white here will grab that pawn and have an extra pawn on the board, but there is just a simple bishop h3 with an idea to mate in one against the white king, and after I move f3 to defend the checkmate, but there is just bishop takes f1 and king takes f1, and again the black here emerged an extra piece on the board. So after rook fd8, Liren here played the move knight e4, and after knight a6, queen d2, knight d4 with a fork idea, rook b2 to defend that idea, and after knight b3, I think attacking the rook c3 to have two attackers versus one defender. So after knight takes, rook takes, and b takes c5, we shall see in this position now that both players has the same number of material with huge chances that the game will be ended to draw. So after rook b8, c6 attacking the queen, queen c7, d4, a takes d4, queen takes d4, and b4. Liren here finds a way to win a pawn with the move rook to a1 to attack this pawn with only one defender, because after the move a5 to defend his pawn, there is just a simple bishop d5 to have a force exchanges, because the black here cannot actually grab this bishop and have a check with two attackers on this pawn. So after Nepo retreat his bishop, Liren here wins upon after bishop takes f7, check, queen takes, queen d6 attacking the rook, and after rook c8 and rook takes a5 for Liren, we shall see in this position now that the white has an extra pawn on the board. But Nepo here still play on after b3 and after queen b4. The idea of queen b4 here is that Nepo cannot actually grab this pawn because he will lose after 8 moves. After, for example, rook takes c6, here comes down a rook a8 check, a force cover but still capture, queen cover, rook takes, give a check, king f7, rook moves, check, king, queen check, and after king h6, queen takes h7 check, and after king h5, queen takes h7 check, king g4, and rook g7 checkmate. And after the move queen b4, Nepo here precisely have a defense move after h6 to have a loop square for his king, because after the move rook b7, rook c7, rook a7, b2, and here Nepo have a trick because if Liren will capture the rook on c7, but there's just b equal to queen, and after have a check, king g2, queen e4, check, king g1, queen takes c7, rook takes, and queen takes a2 with an extra queen on the board. So after b2, Liren here was forced to have a check on the a8, and after king move, Liren here captured the pawn on b2, and after rook c6, queen b1 check, f5, we shall see in this position now that the white has an extra pawn on the board. But after rook a5, g6, queen d3, rook c7, rook d5, still the white here has a pawn up, but after rook to e7, in which the black here successfully regroup his piece and try to defend the position with against the white with an extra pawn on the board. So after rook d6, h5, f3, queen g7, king f2, queen f7, queen d2, queen a8, h3, queen b5, queen d3, in which here Liren is happy to have a queen trade because he is actually have an extra pawn on the board. So Nepo here defend the position with queen to e2 to avoid the queen trade, because after rook to d4, queen c6, g4, h takes, and queen c7, trying to infiltrate the position of white, but Liren here defend the position with king g2, and after queen e5, rook d7. So we shall see in this position now that Nepo cannot actually capture this pawn to equalize the material, because after queen takes, he will lose this queen after queen takes a2 because his rook was actually pinned. So after rook takes, g takes, and g takes, and here the white is winning with a queen on the board. So after rook d7, Nepo was forced to have a rook trade, and after queen takes, d7 check, king h6, queen d2 check, f4 blocking the check, queen d3, g5, and here Nepo successfully have a fortress against this queen and try to defend the third rank against the check of this white king, and try to hold on the position against the white that has actually an extra pawn on the board. So after queen e4, again Liren here was happy to have a queen trade because he has an extra pawn. Queen c5, king f1, queen check, king f2, queen c5 check, e3, f takes, queen takes. Again, the white here was happy to have a queen trade because he has a material up on the board. And after queen c2, king g3, queen c7 check, and after king h3 and the move queen to c6, trying to defend the third rank to avoid any further checks. So after queen to a4, we shall see on this position now that like the game 6 in which they have actually a queen trade that ends to a draw, but on this position it is not possible to have a queen trade to have a draw, because if Nepo here will capture that queen and after f takes e4, then the black here is losing, because the white here can manage to win this position with an extra pawn, because after king g6, king g3, king f6, king f3, and after the move queen e6, the white here will try to have a triangulation and to win this pawn on f5. And again after king a2, king f6, king d3, king a5, king a3, king e6, king d4, king d6, e5 check, king move, king e4, king e7, king f5, and again the white here is winning after the move king f7 and king takes f5 with a topaz pawn on the board. So after queen to a4, Nepo here hold on and play a precise move after queen to c1. The only move that he actually draw the position, and after 64 moves they agreed draw because the white here cannot find any way to win this game because this queen connects the pawn on g5, and only perpetual check here can actually do for white because his king cannot actually help to have a body system against this king on h6. So after knight f3, knight f6, in which they actually go for Rubinstein variation of the English opening. But even though Ding Liren here was actually prepared on this opening after a6 b4, but with a precise move here for Nepo, he avoids those traps that actually will ends him as a loser on this game, because after bishop takes b4, Nepo here will lost on the spot after bishop takes, queen takes, knight a2, losing a piece on the c7. So again, on this position, in which the only move here is to castle, so that if the black here will capture the pawn, and he will lose his queen after this trade with knight f6. And later on, after this position in which Ding Liren here firstly have an extra pawn after f7, bishop takes, queen takes, and queen d6, and rook takes a5, in which Ding Liren here has an extra pawn, but still Nepo plays a solid chess. And after these 64 moves with queen e4, the last trap that Ding Liren can have, but after queen c1, after 64 moves, they ends up with a draw. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to subscribe.